Hello and welcome back to Book Yaps with Ash. I'm Ash. Today, it's a new year, and it's been too long since I've read a Dungeon Crawler Carl book. I think about a month. So today, I'm getting into this fatty book 4. And I'm going to be doing this, Lego, and listening to the audiobook. But I thought I might have something to say about the book as I go through. So here is the intro to the newest reading vlog for this series. I'm excited. I only know that they're going to some castle or something with gnomes, potentially. I don't really remember because it's been a month. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back into this and getting the audiobook going and doing some Lego. So if I have something interesting to share about this book while I do the Lego, you'll see me do that. And if not, see you later when I have an update on how it's going so far. Bye. Book Yaps with Ash. Hello, I'm 12 minutes in. They are in a sand world where there's like a dust storm and it's really hot, so it's like a desert, I guess. And they're trying to figure out where to go. But Donut jumped on Carl's shoulder and then proceeded to like throw up on him. And he said, "Don't throw up on my shoulder." And she said, "Well, where else am I supposed to do it, Carl?" And then she said something about like in the ancient days, it was considered an honor for a cat to throw up on you. And I feel like that's relatable because Haven has almost thrown up on my head and Storm's head multiple times. Alright, I'm 5% into the book, and I'm this percent into the Lego. Wait. And I'm working on the roof. Here's the thing that you want to know, and I wrote it down. Okay? So they're in these, the land is these bubbles. There's like air, tomb, land, and sea. Okay? And they even kindly gave us this diagram, which they gave one for the whole train thing, but it didn't really help. This kind of helps, okay? So Carl and Donut are in the middle one, and then there's like bubbles on the outside. And what they've got to do is they got to work together with the crawlers in their bubble, and they've got to storm the castle. But and then the stairwell is in the castle. But the stairwell won't open unless all 4 castles in these bubbles are stormed. So once they storm their castle, they can then go to the other bubbles. Put the picture right here. Okay? Catching on? Okay. So then, yeah, they're Mordecai thinks everybody that is in these bubbles with them are probably idiots. So they're going to have to go to all of the different bubbles and help storm all the castles if they want to make it to the 6th floor. That's kind of the whole thing. Apparently there's over 4,000 castles and over 1,000 bubbles and about 150 crawlers per bubble. Also, I think the bounty against them is like doubled or something if a crawler kills them, though I'm not sure why anyone would want to if they're going to be the reason that they get out. So that's kind of the big thing right now. They're opening all of their little boxes, and from the battles from the last book, and they've got to figure out how they're gonna do this shit, basically. So that's where we're at. But I think that's the most important thing you gotta know is bubbles. So I'm excited. This sounds really cool. I think it's gonna be quite interesting. I think that Donut's not gonna be very happy when she gets to the sea bubble, because she doesn't want to swim or get wet at all because she's a cat. So yeah, that's that. 95% to go. I mean, let's do it, baby. Hello, I am done my Lego, and my battery's gonna die. And the only other thing I've learned is that they don't have a lot of time outside in this area because there are sandstorms and heat and darkness, and also 2 suns. So that's it for now. See you next time. Couple things that have happened. 1, they watched the recap from like the end of the last floor, and something is up with Lucia Marr. Now, she's the #1 crawler. She's got 2 Rottweiler pets or something, and she's crazy. And she has this spell that essentially makes her invincible. These guys were trying to kill her, and the bullets just like bounced off of her. And I think they killed themselves in doing that. So something's about that. Carl's pissed. He doesn't like what's going on. Obviously, we know this. After that, they got to work trying to storm the gnome castle, but the gnome castle is in the sky, so they had to build like this balloon contraption thing, and they're like shooting missiles, pew 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 pew, to like get the defense down. The defense. They were really close to defeating it, and they could have just shot it down. But Carl wants to storm it the old-fashioned way, because there is this thing called the Gate of the Feral Gods, the book title, and to get access to this thing you need pocket watches and this other thing that some of the NPCs or whatever have, and one of them is in the castle. So yeah, Carl wants to go in and take it, basically. At that point in the story, you don't even really know what the Gate of the Feral Gods is, but it's the book title, so it's gotta be of some importance. Right? Okay. After that, Chris from the nursing home, who they got separated from and didn't hear from, and I couldn't recall why or whatever, but Chris comes back and people are like, oh, we're worried about Chris is being crazy, what the hell's wrong with Chris? Turns out Maggie infiltrated Chris, so not like impersonated, but actually like became a parasite worm and infiltrated Chris's brain and is now trying to kill Carl. Obviously that's her main goal, is to kill Carl. Something that Maggie said as Chris, which could really change the game here, is that apparently nobody really died in the crash when everything flattened in book 1. They just go into storage and can potentially be brought back out. So that makes me wonder, is B gonna be in this book, in the next book, in the next book, in the one of the books? And then after that, you finally find out, 3 chapters later, what the Gate of the Feral Gods is. It's basically a portal to wherever the hell you want to go, I guess. But when you open it, a feral god comes out into the world that you've opened it into, and then kind of destroys that world. So like there's these changelings, they're trying to leave, and their backup plan is to use this gate, but they don't want to because they don't want to destroy this bubble world that they're in with the gnomes and stuff. So that's where we're at. Very action-packed, pretty much from the start. Okay, so they are in the castle, but they're doing a boss battle against a goose who has taken all the magic away. So they're doing this boss battle. They can't use magic, and apparently their physical attacks won't work. And there's also this kid who's just like trying to give them lemonade, and her dad's dead, and the goose that they're fighting, Denise, killed her dad. So yeah, they and because the magic doesn't work, the house is falling because it's being held up by magic balloons. So they have to kill the goose in order to not die, and they only have 3 minutes. Good luck. So they beat the boss battle by shoving the goose head into the garbage disposal. With like a second to spare, by the way. They were like, how do we beat this goose? That's a question we're all asking every day. And because they couldn't use magic and none of their weapons or force worked. But then Carl threw a mug at the goose and realized it caused damage, and then threw like a pitcher or something. So then he was like, oh, it can only be something in this environment that kills the goose, so obviously let's put its head in the garbage disposal. So that's what they did, and then they beat the goose boss and opened that stairwell. But the other stairwells aren't open yet. In the land quadrant, I think. Is this the last one? Maybe the tomb one as well. I think the water one is good to go, but not the other ones. So they have to go help them. And but before that, they went to do a little commercial for the stupid donut robot toy that her sponsor's making her hang out with. And Carl, using the cookbook, figured out how to make it explode and kill... What's her name? Loida. Their new, like, PR person. Because Zev's gone. Because Zev knew too much or helps too much or whatever. Anyways. So Carl used the cookbook to figure out how to turn the toy robot donut into a bomb. Whole thing. Long story. Won't tell you about it. But he killed her. And then there was, like, a whole investigation into that. He thought it had only been 45 minutes. It turns out it had been 5 days. And then they let them back in to the dungeon because they're too valuable, actually, to just kill. They're too entertaining. But they lost like 5 days of time. I think they had 10 days before all this happened. So now they have less time to help open the other stairwells. Katya's been doing some shit. She's been working hard, I guess. We don't really know what she's been doing. But yeah, they gotta get to work. Carl's angry. So love that for him and me. I think that was a good update. Yeah. Hello. I am here to tell you some sentences that I have never said before, that I probably will never say again, that I've never read before until yesterday / today. Okay? And here's what's going on in the Gate of the Feral freaking God. They had to storm the sand castle. Yep, that's what I said, sand castle. And the fuck, I don't have his name. I wrote his name down and now I'm driving. But the mage that they need to get, the like watch turner,
thingy from. He was in there. And what's his story? Well, his story is he's a freak, for one, but he was essentially tricked by like a god or something to come from the 9th floor to this place. What floor are we on? 5? 4? 5. 5, I think. And he was told that he pretty much could get this fictional character that he has as a sex doll or something to come to life and fall in love with him. But that didn't happen. So instead, there was this like sand monster thing, like they call it the ooze, and the deity made that thing, like tricked him into marrying the sand, and then he said after the consummation, the sand ooze thing fell in love with him. And then Donut said, does consummation mean what I think it means? Yes, he fucked the sand. So that's something that happened in this book. What do you think about that? I think it's funny. But anyways, Carl and Donut almost died. Again, crazy stuff. I mean, I knew they weren't going to, given that this is book 4 out of 8 or something. 7, I don't know. A lot more than 4. But they essentially got buried alive and then did something that washed the whole sand castle out into the water so that they wouldn't get buried, like die. And then they had like these potions that can make them breathe underwater, so that's cool. So then they didn't die in the water. But then Donut was freaking out because she doesn't like water, because she is, let me jog your memory, a cat. But they survived that, and Carl ended up putting like the head of the sex doll in his inventory because it was like frozen in an ice sculpture, and then Mongo the dinosaur knocked it over and broke it, and then it popped out of his inventory. He couldn't keep it in his inventory anymore because it's like alive. And they compared it to like Chucky, and they compared it to like the Horcruxes in Harry Potter. And then Donut said that J.K. Rowling stole all of her ideas from 80s movies, which is true. J.K. Rowling's a thief and a plagiarizer. So shout out Donut. And yeah, now they have this like deity head, and she keeps saying she's gonna kill Carl's mom, even though his mom's dead. And they don't know what to do with her, but it seems like the game wants them to keep this deity head, and like they're safe from her. She's in the safe room with them. Well, her head is. She can't do anything. She's just a head, but they don't really know what to do with her. And they're probably gonna keep her around, I guess, and that should be interesting. But that's where I'm at with this book. I'm like 60% of the way through now? Question mark. And as per usual, I am having fun. Bye. Okay, so the back half of this book is insane. So let me catch you up on what happened in the back half of Gate of the Feral Gods. So they did have to open the Gate of the Feral Gods. The AI, the game, basically put them in a situation where they would have to use it. They wanted them to use it for entertainment purposes. So they did it in a way that was safe and would eliminate casualties. So they made sure everybody was in a safe room when they did it, but they were kind of basically trapped underwater and had to open it. So they open it, and then they run to a safe room, and the world starts shaking. So obviously there's something crazy outside. Turns out it's not, so the feral god comes out, and it's this 2-headed Cocker Spaniel, which if you know anything about Donut, you know that she hates dogs, especially Cocker Spaniels. So it's just like a level 10 dog, but it's huge. It's like as big as the bubble itself, so it's gigantic. And they're not supposed to kill it. They could, it's a level 10,
but instead they're supposed to kind of return it to its owner, which is a god. And that god is like way out of the bubble, somewhere else, and he's like the owner's granddad or something like that. Also, he's like on fire. So the quest is to get the dog, bring it to that god who's on fire, and also blind. Also blind. So they're trying to figure out how to do that. And then there's a world quest for everybody in all of the bubbles to kill the dog. So you've got some people who are trying to get the dog to the god, and you've got some people who are trying to sabotage and get the dog dead. So not looking too easy for our pals Carl and Donut. So it's feeling like it's going to be very difficult to lead this dog all the way to Timbuktu Bubble. So what does Carl do? The only rational thing, he chooses to worship a god, which comes with a whole bunch of other challenges, and he chooses this blind, fiery god guy, and that brings the god to him. When you worship a god, it brings the god to you, I guess. So then the god is with the dog, everybody's happy for a second. And anyways, this book is just so creative, because how are you going to tell me that there's all these bubbles, all these people are in the bubbles, and then they're just kind of like around. They're like little bubbles, each with their different themes, out in like space. I couldn't come up with it. So anyways, they solved that problem, and they still need to try to save as many crawlers as they possibly can. Some of the bubbles haven't been popped. Some of the crawlers haven't stormed even their own castle. They've popped their bubble, but they want to save as many other crawlers as possible because they're good people. So they make this plan to cause absolute chaos. And what they do is they get crawlers from all the different bubbles to come to the Desperado Club, because you enter the Desperado Club through various doors and you're all in the same club. So you can meet up even if you're in different bubbles, different areas of the world, whatever. And essentially what happens is Carl gives the Gate of the Feral Gods to one of the crawlers from another bubble. They open the gate. Everybody in that bubble goes through the gate into Carl's bubble. Gate closes, a feral god is released. Sometimes there's a chance that a real god will be also released that's connected to the feral god, but it doesn't always happen. There's quite a few bubbles that haven't been popped, so by the end of this, there are quite a few feral gods and gods adjacent running around this bubble world and causing chaos and fighting each other and being gigantic. So they wanted to do that, but then they also, as part of their plan, wanted to help a bunch of the NPCs get to the 9th floor to safety, but then also to fuck up the 9th floor, because that's where all the weirdos who pay to come and like fight in the war but not die are. And they're like preparing, and it's fucked up. So their plan is to open the gate into floor 9 so that everybody can go in there. But you don't really know like how they're gonna like fuck it up really yet. But essentially they create a decoy gate. So they have this like fake version of the gate, and then Maggie comes to try and sabotage that, and she like kicks it away, so then the gate won't open. But it turns out the real gate is underwater, and so what happens is the gate opens underwater, and all of the water floods into floor 9 and essentially kind of destroys it and kills a lot of people, a lot of NPCs, and really messes the whole thing up. And they basically tricked the whole game into doing that without getting caught, and they're not happy about that because it fucked it up for them. So and so that's the end. I think that's basically the end. But okay, and stay the fuck with me, okay, because there is an epilogue, okay? And in the epilogue, you don't really know who you're following, you don't really know what's going on, but there are these aliens who are watching people, and it turns out they're watching people who didn't go into the dungeon when everything happened. So if you didn't go into the dungeon, you're kind of screwed, because there's no buildings, or like there's a lack of resources and whatever, but you could stay and just hope for the best. And so there were some folks who just hoped for the best. And who is part of these folks? B is part of them. So she wasn't in the Caribbean. They had come home early. She was with that guy, Brad. Brad doesn't like her. Brad's a loser. Anyways, she is with them. They're in Seattle. So they were at the airport when everything happened. And luckily, I guess, if you want to call it that, they were outside. They didn't go in the dungeon. Brad wishes he did. He'd probably die. I don't know much about Brad, except that he probably would die. So she is alive. And you know, I thought for a while that she probably wasn't alive. But then I thought, once they started saying stuff about people not really being dead and whatever, I was like, they're gonna bring me back. But anyways, they brought her back in a way that I didn't expect, so good job, Matt. And so what happened is, because they were in Seattle, she went back to her apartment. Obviously it was crushed. She saw the severed head outside of the apartment, and she was looking for Donut, but she didn't find Donut, obviously. But she did find Ferdinand/Gravy Boat and took him in, even though he's like feral, basically, and hates her. So she has that cat, and the reason that these aliens are there looking for her is because Odette sent them to get B. I believe they killed Brad, and they're kidnapping B. So obviously that's going to be a very big plot point in the next book, and I'm hoping that we just find out that B doesn't really suck as much as she's made out to. It'll be hard to convince me, because she was gonna sell Donut, and I think that's shit, and I couldn't forgive that. So we shall see. But damn, this one, oh my god, I think this is probably, aside from the first one, my favorite of them so far. It was just so imaginative and fun. There was so much chaos. I loved the crawlers working together. I love how rebellious Carl continues to get. It was easier to follow than the whole train track floor business. After a bit, it took me a while to like start really understand the bubble thing, but I had a lot of fun reading it, and this has been my reading vlog for The Gate of the Feral Gods. So thanks for watching these. Again, I don't know why you like watching the world's worst book report, but maybe I should start calling these vlogs that, like the world's worst book report. Have you ever seen those videos going around the internet of like telling anybody who hasn't read Dungeon Crawler Carl about the book? It just means like it makes you sound like a toddler. You should watch those. They're funny and accurate. This has been Book Yaps with Ash. I've been Ash. Ka-chow.